OR Tambo utata wasemampondweni siyabonga.
Well, fellow South Africans and the people of Africa as well as the entire world, today South Africa and the entire world is celebrating the 103rd birthday of President Oliver Tambo. Comrade Tambo, usually referred as OR, was born in the village of Kantila in Bizana in the Eastern Cape. And he came from a humble rural beginnings. But his great intellect, which his father saw and treasured, led to the whole family sacrificing and contributing so that he could get good education. You know that Comrade Oliver Tambo was one of the students at the University of Fort Hare. And this is where Comrade OR met the likes of Nelson Mandela and some of his fellow political activist students. And because of his activism at Fort Hare, Comrade OR, who was the secretary of the Student Representative Council, was expelled. He then moved to Johannesburg and became a science and physics teacher at his old alma mater, St. Peter's Priority. If there is one message that we must take with us from these celebrations, I've noted in Eguruleni, I've noted parts of the country, I've noted the statue of Oliver Tambo today in Johannesburg next to the airport. It is this clarion call for unity and collective leadership. So, whilst the ANC is facing these challenges, we must always remind ourselves that if OR was alive, his clarion call will always be about the unity and collective leadership of the African National Congress. Remember, today we find ourselves in a very difficult time in the history of our country. Our economy is in a big crisis, and poverty is on the rise. Inequalities are still persisting. The rich are getting more richer. The poor remain poorer. And I think this is the time for the ANC, comrades, the alliance, all the mass democratic forces to unite and ensure that the African National Congress agenda of transforming South Africa continues. The people of South Africa are suffering indeed. This is not the time for egos and individualism. This is what Comrade Tambo will have said to us. This is not the time for leaders to undermine one another in order to promote themselves as individuals. This is the time to learn from the long history of our liberation movement, the African National Congress. Comrade Oliver Tambo became part of a small network of young African activists in Johannesburg. And among these young comrades, Walter Sisulu, Anton Limbede, Jordan Gugumbani, they regularly visited the residence of Dr. A.B. Kuma, who was the then president of the African National Congress. Together they formulated a plan to revive the ANC as a more radical organization, more attuned to the needs of poor Africans and accessible to ordinary South Africans. This plan resulted in the African Claims document, which was adopted by the ANC at its 1943 National Conference in Mangaung. So that clarion call of ensuring that the ANC become more militant and radicalized, whenever we hear young people today, we should understand that this is the character and nature of young people during the history of struggle. And I don't think we should all the time criticize, but we must guide and ensure that what young people of South Africa today are calling and yearning for is more radical socio-economic transformation, which is the ANC position over many years. So Comrade OR was also part of the core of young leaders who established the African National Congress Youth League in 1944 and was the ANC Youth League first Secretary General. So if you look at the history of Oliver Tambo, he emerged out of struggle. He was really cooked, baked. He grew up in the culture and traditions of the African National Congress. From 1948 onwards, when the white Afrikaner Supremacist National Party came into power in South Africa, with their policy of apartheid, the ANC Youth League played a critical role to further radicalize and intensify the struggle for black and especially African liberation. With Comrade OR as the scribe, they prepared the program of action that included the civil disobedience of the 1946 passive resistance campaign, as well as mass action and strikes by the labor movement. So Comrade OR was one of our best and the longest serving president of the African National Congress. And whenever we are facing challenges in history, I think we are always reminded. Remember, this is one president. In terms of songs, this is one president where during his history, we actually sang so many songs about President Oliver Tambo and the likes of Nelson Mandela, because these were real tested, credible leaders of the African National Congress. So the struggle continues for a better life for all South Africans. And I'm sure during this birthday of Oliver Tambo, we need to pick up the spear, we need to do introspection, we need to ensure that we move forward and we unite our people for a non-racial, non-sexist, united, democratic South Africa. Of course, we are envisaging a prosperous South Africa, but for black people in the main, South Africa is still not yet prosperous. For as long as the black majority are marginalized in terms of participating in the mainstream economy, South Africa will never face peace and stability. And that's why we make a call to everybody that during this month, during this day of Oliver Tambo, let us pick up the spear and let's forget about our egos and individualism. We are referring to these historical events to show how Comrade OR was molded into the remarkable leader of our liberation movement that he became. History has no blank pages, and leaders are not born. They come and emerge out of struggle. And it is a very clear example of Oliver Tambo. We must always appreciate that within the African National Congress, our leaders are the product of years of collective action and experience. That is why we should never idolize individuals, no matter how important their contribution to the struggle are or were. We must always recognize them as the consequence and products of the collective investment and history of the struggle of our people. The ANC is the parliament of the people, but the people themselves are their own liberators. While Oliver Tambo and while still in exile as the ANC and preparing our movement to return and to become a people's government, OR Tambo foresaw the difficulties and challenges that we will face. And he warned us, and I want to quote him, "Comrades, you might think it is very difficult to wage a liberation struggle. Wait until you are in power. I might be dead by then. At that stage, you will realize that it is actually more difficult to keep the power than to wage a liberation war. People will be expecting a lot of services from you. You will have to satisfy the various needs of our people." Close quotes. And today we are now experiencing how true those words from OR were. However, we cannot falter in facing up to these challenges and to succeed. We owe it to the great leadership examples and sacrifices of our leaders, such as Comrade OR, Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, Lilian Ngoyi, and many others, to face up to the challenges of our lifetime, similarly to how they face up to the challenges of their time. In this regard, Comrade OR also warned us that the greatest danger for the ANC is to be divided internally against ourselves. He never tired at warning us, and I want to quote, "Be vigilant, comrades. The enemy is vigilant. Beware of the wedge driver, men who creep from ear to ear, driving wedges amongst us, who go around creating splits and divisions. Beware the wedge driver. Watch his poisonous tongue," close quotation. With this warning ringing in our ears, Oliver Tambo proceeded to say, "Nothing can destroy the ANC except for the ANC itself." So, comrades, today as we celebrate the birthday of Oliver Tambo, when we remember him and when we remember the likes of Harry Gwala, when we remember the likes of Winnie Mandela, when we remember the likes of Joe Slovo, when we remember the likes of Walter Sisulu, the lives of Chris Hani, the likes of many other leaders and those unsung heroes and heroines of our struggle, it is for this time today, all members of the ANC, wherever they are, all South Africans, all those peace-loving people in the continent, in South Africa, across the globe, let's pick up the spear, let's further unite to change the lives of our communities wherever they are. Remember, the African National Congress still remains a liberation movement. That's how we have actually defined it. That is the character of the African National Congress. And we must still continue singing songs about Oliver Tambo. Oliver Tambo boya. Boya Oliver Tambo uzosikhokhela. Oliver Tambo thetha no border. Akhulula Mandela. And it has happened. We have seen it during our lifetime. Aluta continue, the struggle continue for a better South Africa. South Africa which will belong to all, but South Africa which will focus on those who are marginalized, those who are poor, those who have no food, those who have no electricity, those who are marginalized because of the color of their skin, those who are marginalized because of the oppression and colonialism. Long live the ANC, long live the spirit of Oliver Tambo, long live the spirit of Adelaide Tambo, long live the spirit of Harry Gwala, long live the spirit of Winnie Madikizela Mandela, long live the ANC, long live. Forward, victory is certain all the time. Long live the spirit of Peter Mokaba, Pax Mangahlana, long live the young lions of South Africa. Amandla Gawethu, power to the people. I want to thank you on this occasion of the 103 birthday of Oliver Tambo. Amandla, long live.
Oliver Tambo, utata wasemampondweni, siyabonga ngemisebenzi yakho bekungekho lula, kodwa uyinqobile Oliver Tambo.